Quick recap of the week, and it was a busy one for the president who, in between claiming his father was born in Germany when he was born in New York, mispronouncing the word origins as oranges repeatedly, and trolling Joe Biden for touching women inappropriately, which seems, you know, a bit fucking rich. Trump made a major and shocking decision on Thursday regarding the Federal Reserve.
President Trump is said to have selected Herman Cain for the Federal Reserve Board.
A former pizza executive turned radio talk show host who dropped his 2012 Republican presidential bid amid sexual harassment allegations. Not the typical resume for a Federal Reserve Board member.
Oh, really? You sure about that? You think the resume of a pizza maker, talk show host and alleged sexual harasser would be pretty unusual for the Fed? Well, why don't you tell that to the rest of the board? 6 Mario Batalis. But it is true. Picking Herman Cain for the Federal Reserve is bonkers. And it comes just 2 weeks after Trump also said he'd nominate Stephen Moore, a TV commentator and fellow at a conservative think tank. And these two likely nominees are causing more concern than your typical Trump administration appointee. And for good reason, as I'll let a former Deputy Secretary of the Treasury explain.
It's one thing to be putting, your political friends and cronies, within the agencies, but to put them on the board of the central bank is something that has to be done very, very cautiously, because the moment the Fed loses credibility, it's almost game over.
Now, that is a pretty bold statement. She's basically saying there, go ahead, put Mr. Oops in charge of the Department of Energy or a mint-condition CPR dummy in charge of opioids and Middle East peace. By all means, hand the Commerce Department over to a man who looks like Jackson Pollock if he'd lived or Moby if he died. But the Fed, you don't fuck around with the Fed. And that is because a lot of America's economic power depends on people's trust in the stability of the dollar. It is the world's reserve currency in part because the Fed is seen as a reliable, independent institution. Trump has actually already filled 4 of the Fed's 7 seats, including the chairman, Jerome Powell. But those appointments didn't get much press because all of these people are fundamentally qualified. Cain and Moore, however, are not. Cain has argued for a return to the gold standard, a virtually unheard-of opinion among respected economists, while Moore is a tireless advocate of supply-side economics. He helped design the tax cut that blew a hole in Kansas's budget, and he once asked if the country even really needs a Fed. But instead tonight of spending time breaking down why their economic views should be disqualifying in and of themselves, I would like to make a point that requires no knowledge of monetary policy whatsoever, and that is that these two guys are just goofs. They're just a pair of dangerously goofy goofs. And this isn't actually a job where that's okay. Fed board members are famously careful with anything they say in public because markets can react violently. Just 2 words from the Fed chair sent markets soaring last November. And these two are not known for thinking before they speak. Here is Stephen Moore on a CNN panel last year discussing Stormy Daniels and deciding to blow the doors off the room with this awesome joke.
We're discussing a sitting president being sued by a porn star, and it's part of almost like the routine of today's news cycle, which is the interesting part of it.
Kevin, are you saying that a porn star would actually try to call attention to herself? Shocking, right?
Kevin, you want to...
I mean, that's what porn stars do.
Nailed it. You nailed it, Stephen. You don't want that man's mouth moving markets. Now, as for Herman Cain, let me remind you, this is a man who, when he ran for president, once asked a crowd of Cuban Americans, how do you say delicious in Cuban? He bragged about not knowing the president of Uzbeki, Stan, and had this memorable moment in a presidential debate.
A poet once said, life can be a challenge, life can seem impossible, but it's never easy when there's so much on the line.
All right, so it turns out that quote wasn't exactly poetry. It was, strictly speaking, a song from the end of Pokemon the movie from 2000.
It's true. It's true. Herman Cain quoted this Pokemon movie during a presidential debate, which is both the worst place to do that and also technically the best place to do it, because who on that stage is going to risk calling you out? Excuse me, but I believe my opponent just attributed that quote to a poet when it really comes from the theme song to the film Pokemon the Movie 2000, whose lyrics I also know by heart, and oh God, I'm just now realising this is worse for me than it is for him. Please carry on. Ignore what I just said. And as if all that were not disqualifying enough, I know personally that Herman Cain should not be on the Fed, because after he dropped out of that presidential race, I did a series of interviews with him for The Daily Show, where he pretended to be in office and in which he, for some reason, did anything I asked him to do. Anything. Watch. Look into that camera and convince Nicolas Cage to give that Constitution back.
Nicholas, bring back our Constitution. I respect you, Cage, but get a grip.
We have just had the results back from your latest presidential physical, and it turns out that you have telepathic powers. Look into that camera and convince the Chinese that they need to step down.
It's your move.
Oil is spilling everywhere, and it has devastated America's national parks. Gather those most affected and explain to them why their sacrifice is not in vain.
Creatures of the forest, assemble.
If any part of you is thinking, how did I get him to do that stuff? I just asked him. Once. He took orders from some birdie twit with a pixie cut. And look, at this point, you may well be wondering, what does Trump see in these two men? Well, just that. He wants people who will do exactly what he tells them to do. You've just seen how well Herman Cain takes direction, and Moore is such a Trump sycophant that he co-wrote a flattering book called Trumponomics and said Trump should win the Nobel Prize in economics. And this should be worrying to you, as Trump seems to be looking to bring the Fed under his control. He's reportedly furious that it's raised interest rates, slowing down the stock market, and he's publicly attacked Jerome Powell, a huge breach of custom, and reportedly considered firing him. And if he manages to install Moore and Cain, that could fundamentally undermine the Fed. So it's very important that the Senate stand against these nominations. And I know that this could be a difficult fight, but as a poet once said, come with me, the time is right. There's no better team. Arm in arm, we'll win the fight. It's always been our dream. Pokemon, gotta catch 'em all. It's you and me, I know it's my destiny. Pokemon. But now, let's move on now to Baltimore. Baltimore is a great place to get crabs if you can't find Post Malone. Now, Baltimore has a long history of corruption, but its latest scandal is truly remarkable.
Well, Mayor Pew is speaking out amid the ethics controversy surrounding her business dealings with the University of Maryland medical system. The mayor had served on the board of directors since 2001, and throughout an 8-year period, she sold the medical system $500,000 worth of her Healthy Holly children's books.
It's true. Baltimore's mayor has apparently made hundreds of thousands of dollars off several local entities, some of which have business before the city, purchasing her self-published books, including Healthy Holly, Vegetables Are Not Just Green, Healthy Holly, Fruits Come in Colours Like the Rainbow, and presumably Healthy Holly, Fruits Come in Vegetables, but only when they receive verbal consent. And look, it is hard to believe Pew's books were bought purely on the base of literary merit. Reporters who've read them have pointed out that, for a start, she can't seem to settle on the correct spelling of the name for one of her main characters. Also, she seems to think a normal, healthy dinner involves a family gathered around 4 massive plates of salad, with one smaller salad that sits in the centre of the table untouched, while your dad says normal things like, "We are having spinach with our dinner, it is a vegetable." And finally, in her educational children's book about eating right, she spelled fucking vegetable wrong. And veg-tail sounds like slang that douchey bros use when they pick up girls at vegan restaurants. Yeah, brah, I'm gonna gulp down some quinoa, pretend I fucks with kale, and then try and smash some of that veg-tail. All day, son, all day. I'm all about the VT. And the scandal widened this week after it emerged that the amount she's received from high-profile organisations or people has now reached $800,000. Pew is now on leave because she's fighting pneumonia, but before she left, she called a press conference to defend herself, and in this appearance, where she was dealing with accusations that she'd misused her office to promote a side project, she did this.
Mayor Pew also showed us her child clothing line, which has slogans to get active on them as well. There was bibs and onesies.
It's true. She basically started hawking her idea for a kid's clothing line, and she did it for 3 full minutes.
As you can see on our bibs, it was about teaching children to walk, run, crawl, skip, dance, some to eat healthier, play and crawl, and the same thing here with the messaging swim, jump, play, walk, run, crawl.
OK, so a few things here. First, walk, run, crawl, skip, dance sounds less like something you'd put on a onesie and more like something that Bjork whispers to you at the end of a conversation instead of saying goodbye. Walk, run, crawl, skip, dance. Second, if the clothes that you're making are that small, your baby is not ready to swim. And finally, how is a baby supposed to learn healthy eating habits from a bib that reads, eat healthy? The baby can't see the bib when it's on, it just can't bend its neck far enough. And I know what you're thinking, just look in the mirror, baby. Look in the mirror after you put your bib on, but before you eat. But then, of course, the writing will be backwards, making it even more difficult to decipher for a baby who already, and this is true, cannot fucking read. But let's put all that aside, and let's say this baby can read backwards, looks in the mirror before a meal, and intuits the message that it should eat healthy. It is still going to be physically strapped into a chair and fed whatever its parents pick, because babies have no agency, because that's how babies work. Now, investigators are now looking into this situation, and while there have been no formal charges so far, the whole thing does not look good for Baltimore's mayor. And unless there is a very good explanation here that I can't see and does not exist, it might be better for her to read the writing on the onesie and walk, run, crawl, skip, or dance her way out of office. And now, this.
And now, a tribute to the secret star of divorce court.
Mr. Moreno, did your wife catch you with your situation out on your phone, texting it to other people?
It couldn't have been me. I don't know. I fell in love with her when I first saw her.
Right.
So I was like, well, I know she's probably not gonna want to talk to me because I'm younger than her, so I'm gonna just make up an age.
We hang out all the time, so I wouldn't remember a specific.
Yeah, I did, and I do tend to react that way because my feelings be hurt.
Because that's how large the argument was throughout those few days.
So you should have known that I was going out and seeing someone else.
Different.
Some other guy.
Right.
No,
okay, I got you.
Because I had to go back.
You don't like two guys. There's no I guess.
Not what you open up the door for. If I say something, if we have a lot of the conversations is because I'm bringing the conversation.
I did do that, but that's not how we started.
She was in the back seat with 2 dudes in the car.
Moving on. Our main story tonight concerns mobile homes, perfected by humans but invented by snails. There are many misconceptions about mobile or manufactured homes. For instance, right now, you may be picturing something that looks like this, but for decades, the industry's been trying to change that image, running ads like this one.
You bought a mobile home?
Today's manufactured home.
You bought a house!
Factory-built quality at a price that makes sense.
We have 3 big bedrooms. I love it. It's a manufactured home.
Today's manufactured home.
You bought a house.
OK, I think I get it, but for the record, that sexy saxophone riff would make a reveal of anything seem good. Here, I'll show you. You bought a taxidermy fox? You bought a fox? But it is true. It is true. It can be genuinely hard to tell the difference between manufactured homes and conventional homes, just like it's hard to tell the difference between Jessica Chastain and Bryce Dallas Howard. The difference is, like a mobile home, Bryce Dallas Howard is assembled off-site, then placed on wheels and moved to her permanent location. Around 20 million people live in mobile homes. That's roughly 1 in 18 Americans. And they're one of America's last affordable housing options, costing up to 50% less per square foot than a conventional house, which is great. But in recent years, some of the biggest investors in America have moved into this industry. According to one new report, over 100,000 home sites, traditionally run by mom-and-pop businesses, are now owned or partly owned by private equity firms like these. So the homes of some of the poorest people in America are getting snapped up by some of the richest people in America. And luckily, there have been no problems whatsoever. Except I'm obviously kidding, it's going terribly. If you do want to hear me lie about stories to make you feel better, you might enjoy our spin-off show, Everything's Fine, with John Oliver. Did you know ISIS is just hamsters? This little terrorist name is Dumpling and he doesn't even know how to use his gun. Sadly, back in the real world, the truth is the rise of big money investors in mobile homes has led to a corresponding spike in rents, fees and local news stories like these.
People living in a local mobile home park outraged over the sharp increase in lot rent.
Rents were raised by as much as 36%.
Rents were raised by nearly 60%.
Ella Karcher lives on a fixed income. Her lot rent's just gone up, and it all adds up to a bill she can't afford.
Now it's a matter of, okay, now which medication am I going to take in half so that I can make it stretch out a little bit longer?
That's clearly horrible because nobody should be made to stretch out medicine. It's sad enough when you stretch out your almost empty bottle of shampoo by adding a bunch of water, and if you didn't relate to that joke, you haven't suffered a single day in your life. So tonight, let's take a look at the mobile home industry. And let's start with the company that sells more mobile homes than any other, Clayton Homes, controlled by one of the richest men in America, Warren Buffett, although the company's ads choose to feature a more down-home spokesman.
What do I know about Clayton Homes? I know they're built right here in America.
And they know the difference between a house and a home.
Hey, Miss Kay, a home is where you get your famous sweet potato pie, honey. And you all know how we all try to make Miss Kay happy, happy, happy. Clayton Homes, good call.
Judging by that creepy delivery, there's just no way that getting her famous sweet potato pie is not also code for some kind of disgusting sex act. It probably means Miss Kay smearing pie filling on his ballsack while a live duck scrapes it off with its bill. And if it does, good call. But the key difference between a mobile and a conventional home has nothing to do with pie. It has to do with how it retains its value. Just listen to finance guru Dave Ramsey give his no-nonsense take on whether or not you should buy one.
Mobile homes go down in value. It's the only thing you own that you live in that goes down in value. Even if you buy dirt under it, that goes up in value more than it goes down in value. So it appears you didn't lose money, you lost money. You buy a $50,000 mobile home, in a few years it's a $10,000 mobile home. I mean, cars go down in value, mobile homes go down in value. It's a car you sleep in.
I've got to say, I find the negativity of his tone genuinely refreshing there. That guy should replace Jim Cramer on his show. No more running around excitedly pressing buttons like a little boy at an arcade. Just an angry old grump hunched over a desk telling you you're going to lose money. So mobile homes may be a terrible investment for people buying them, but they've been an incredible investment for Warren Buffett. Clayton Homes generated pre-tax earnings of $911 million last year. And they've done that not just by selling homes, but by financing them as well. Because instead of being financed with mortgages, mobile homes tend to be bought with high-interest, shorter-term chattel loans, the kind you'd use to buy a car or a TV. And an investigation a few years back found Clayton relies on predatory sales practices, exorbitant fees, and interest rates that can exceed 15%, trapping many buyers in loans they can't afford. Now, Clayton strenuously denies all of that, saying the report was based on isolated incidents and that its customers report high levels of satisfaction. Although I will point out that one of those isolated incidents was this call a Clayton customer got when she fell behind on payments.
Why don't you try something to come up with the money by the 31st?
What do you suggest, except for the things that you already suggest, which doesn't work?
Donate plasma or donate blood.
Really? I'm gonna get $800 for that?
No, that's one way to come up with a little bit of money, though.
Holy shit! Go donate blood. I guess one way to get your customers to report high levels of satisfaction is to make sure they're all feeling lightheaded after you literally bleed them fucking dry. But one of the biggest problems here isn't even to do with how you pay for a mobile home or how quickly it loses its value. It's where you put it. Because around a third of mobile home dwellers own their homes but don't own the land underneath it. That's because they live in mobile home parks and pay rent on that land to the park owner. But in recent years, large investors have been snatching those parks up and either tearing them down or ratcheting up rent and fees, as these women experienced firsthand.
The Ingdahl family decided to sell the park, and they sold it to the Carlyle Group.
First of all, Carlyle started off with an immediate 8% increase, space rent. So that was a threat to most of us who are living on fixed income. I don't know what's going to happen. I may be forced to leave everything, my doctors, my friends, the life I've known here, even though I own my home.
It's true. That woman may lose her home, so the Carlyle Group, an investment firm with $216 billion in assets, can make more money for their shareholders. If the concept of income inequality came to life, that is the sentence it would scream when it orgasmed. Now, Carlyle insists that the price hikes were to pay for park improvements, which makes complete sense. If you ask these fuckers why they got into private equity, I'm sure they'd say to you, oh, to break even on investments in the beautification of affordable housing. Why else would we do this? I also apparently have to tell you that Carlyle has a safety net programme for low-income residents, although you should know it only applies to 21 of the 800 lots in that park, so it's a safety net that only catches 3% of people, just like the one they use at my favourite circus, a pile of dead trapeze artists. It's fun for the whole family, unless you're a family of one of those trapeze artists. And if you're thinking, well, look, that's terrible, but if those women live in mobile homes, why don't they just move? Well, there is a problem with that, as one of those women will tell you.
Although they call them mobile homes, it would cost $20,000 to move this home out here. Plus, once you move them in and they settle, moving them out is going to help destroy them.
She's right. It can cost thousands of dollars to move mobile homes if you can move them at all. That is why 80% of mobile homes never move. So mobile homes are mobile about as much as a king crab is an actual king. It's just not, except in some parts of Alaska where it wields the power of a despot, but even then, it constitutionally shares power with Moose Parliament. So king is really a more ceremonial title there. Alaska's a fascinating place. And this lack of mobility for tenants is actually part of the attraction for big investors. And to see just how cynical and predatory the industry can be, meet Frank Rolfe. His company is one of the largest park operators in the US, controlling over 30,000 home sites in 25 states. Rolfe is an evangelist for the wonders of mobile home park investing. Just look at this uplifting message that he made ahead of the 2012 election about what it would mean for his industry, taped, for some reason, in front of a shitty green screen Oval Office.
If Mitt Romney wins, things are good. But if Barack Obama wins, things are good. You see, it doesn't much matter who wins the election. All that matters is that the statistics show that Americans will continue to get poorer in that lower half of the population.
Wow. What President Webcam is essentially saying there is, no matter what happens, the poor will suffer and we will feast on their rich marrow. And, as you can see, it's casual Friday here at the White House, which is why I sit before you looking like a divorced dad at a parent-teacher conference. Rolfe is completely shameless about the degree to which his business depends on having a captive customer base, positively comparing it to running a Waffle House where everyone is chained to the booths. A concept so deeply chilling, I think it may have just inspired Jordan Peele's next movie. Now, you should know, Rolfe maintains that line was taken out of context. In fact, he has a whole page on his website about it, claiming he was just talking about the incredibly consistent revenues in mobile home parks. So he wasn't suggesting that he's a heartless person whose customers are stuck there with him holding all the cards, deciding for himself how high he wants their rent to go. To see him say that, you'd need to enroll in his online mobile home university, which we did, and found seminars like this.
What I found, and again, just as a heartless person, is that the customers are stuck there. They don't have any option. They can't afford to move the trailer. They don't have $3,000. So the only way they can object to your rent raise is to walk off and leave the trailer, in which case it becomes abandoned property and you recycle it, put another person in it. So you really hold all the cards. So the question is, what do you want to do? How high do you want to go? Wow.
Usually, when someone is that contemptuous of poor people, they're immediately visited by the ghost of Christmas future. Now, maybe Rolfe will claim that quote is out of context too, and that he's not arguing that they're hostages. To hear him say that, you need to send away for Rolfe's audio seminar on running mobile home parks, which we also did, and found this.
One of the big drivers to making money is the ability to increase the rent. If we didn't have them hostage, if they weren't stuck in those homes in those mobile home lots, it would be a whole different picture.
Frank Rolfe's Mobile Home University is basically a crash course in how to be an arsehole. Although, having taken that course, I'd argue that if that's what you're looking for, save your money and just follow Piers Morgan on Twitter for one afternoon. And look, Rolfe's course isn't just online. If you attend his mobile home boot camp, he'll even take you on a field trip tour of a park.
When you get to the park, you'll be shocked and turned off by, for example, the beach towel in the window instead of an actual curtain. That doesn't mean anything. What you got to worry about are the following items: infrastructure, density, expense, age of home, and location. Got it?
What's going on?
They're teaching people about mobile home parks.
Oh!
Yeah.
That's good.
No, it isn't, though. It's really not good. Telling that woman that people are just there to learn about mobile home parks is like telling a lobster people came to the restaurant to learn about crustacean habitats. Oh, that's good. Are those knives and forks to help remove these tiny rubber bands from her claws? No, they're going to eat you. So, with that woman and many mobile home residents like her in danger of having their lives turned upside down, it is worth asking, is there anything that can be done here? Well, one potential solution is for residents to band together and buy their own park, keeping it out of the hands of speculators or developers. And while that sounds inherently like a long shot, there are non-profit groups that have had real success in helping tenants get financing to do just that. What would help is to have laws in every state that give residents the right of first refusal and time to raise funds if the current owner plans to sell. But until laws like that are put in place, which they absolutely should be, there are some key things to bear in mind. If you want to rent a mobile home, that's fine. If you can afford to buy one and put it on land that you own, that's fine. But buying a mobile home and renting the land underneath it can be financially catastrophic. And it is very important that anyone considering doing that knows the risks involved. And I'll tell you what would have been helpful all along, if the marketing for these homes had always made those risks completely clear.
You bought a mobile home?
Today's manufactured home.
You bought a house! I can't believe you bought a house.
I really didn't.
It's exactly like a house. And what a beautiful piece of land.
I don't own the land, though, and that's actually a super important difference.
Look at you, all grown up with a mortgage.
It's a chattel loan with an astronomical interest rate.
The important thing is it's an investment in your future.
It'll actually only ever go down in value, and since the private equity firm bought the park, my rent has skyrocketed. Are you listening to me?
Oh, I love these decorative bottles.
Oh, that's my blood. I have to sell my blood and plasma in order to make loan payments.
But home is where the sweet potato pie is.
I didn't make that. Did you make that? Is that burning your hand? Are you a witch?
I want to see your garden.
No. Don't look out there.
Here I go.
Don't do it.
Oh, there she is. Look, she can't afford to move. You hold all the cards.
He's right. It's like a Waffle House where I am chained to my booth.
That sounds delicious.
What is wrong with you?
Speaking of delicious...
Stop it.
You bought a house!
Say it again, motherfucker!
That's our show. Thanks so much for watching. See you next week. Good night!
Are you listening to me? Are you listening to me?
What's that?
Are you listening to me?
Are you listening to me? Speaking of delicious...